of Niti Aayog, renowned for his extensive experience in defense research encompassing both fundamental and applied science. Having served as Secretary of a Defense Research and Development Organization, he has made remarkable contributions in the indigenous developments of missiles like Prithvi, Dhanush, Prahar and Agni as Agni-5, as well as the two-tiered ballistic missile defense system. Dr. Saraswat played a pivotal role in establishing infrastructure to support the nuclear doctrine, developing cybersecurity technologies, and enhancing the nation's defense capabilities against ballistic missiles threats. Furthermore, he has been actively involved in development of alternate energy systems such as clean coal technologies, concentrated solar power systems, and bioenergy hydrogen-based economies. As a member of Niti Aayog, Dr. Saraswat has initiated the Methanol Economy Program, aiming to utilize methanol for transportation, energy generation, and chemical production. His outstanding achievements have been recognized through numerous awards, including the Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan, as well as honorary doctorates from over 28 universities. With a round of applause, please join me in welcoming our chief guest to deliver his speech today, Dr. Vijay Kumar Saraswat.
Good afternoon, namaskar. My greetings to all the dignitaries from Japan and India, or my previous speakers who have already enlightened you on the subject of mobility today. I see a lot of industry leaders, government representatives, so my greetings to all. Particularly, I would like to greet Madam Geetanjali Kirloskar, because yesterday was the Women's Day and she is one of the epitome of the excellence what we have in the women leadership. I am privy to the relationship between India and Japan from my early student days. I used to see in Andhra Pradesh iron ore being mined and taken to Japan, and then we used to get the products from Japan. From that beginning to my early days in 1980s, when Suzuki came in and transformed the automobile sector in the country. In fact, that one initiative has really launched India into the forefront of automobile industry today, what we have. We are really grateful for that association. From those days of mobility, today the concept of mobility has really changed. And we are talking of mobility where people can move, goods can be moved efficiently, safely and reliably. Once upon a time, we only thought that mobility just for transportation, but today we are connecting national development with mobility. We are talking of markets, we are talking of reducing logistic costs, we are improving productivity and competitiveness. So the efficient growth of mobility, urban development and access to essential services are part of the India's paradigm. Now, where are we going? The future of mobility will be shaped by a combination of technology, policy, economics, environment, and the human behavior. I don't know how many people have really thought about the last part, the human behavior. As I mentioned to you, India and Japan together have the capability to co-design and contribute towards shaping the next era of advanced mobility. I think it was mentioned that we are today looking at multi-fuel, multi-pathway. So we have to look at India's mobility transformation has to cater to our huge population of 1.4 billion people. A reduction in the cost of logistics, which is in the region of 13 to 14% of our GDP, and the kind of urbanization which is taking place at an unprecedented rate, and our dependence on oil import, which is in the today's context is going to suffer badly due to the geopolitical changes which are happening, and our own demand for energy. It is predicted that by 2030, we will be having a demand of something like 900 gigawatts. So you can imagine the kind of expansion that is required. So it is no single fuel or technology can power a nation of India's scale. That's why India has launched on diversified pathways which include the battery electric vehicles, strong and plug-in hybrids. I will touch upon this subject a little later. Ethanol blending is one of our major initiatives, and we want by 2025-26, E20 should become one of our major carbon saving pathway. Compressed biogas and LNG, green hydrogen and for heavy mobility and sustainable aviation fuels. All this, if we implement, will reduce the fossil fuel vulnerability what we have. It will also support our domestic value chain and avoid what is called the technology lock-in. What is the current scenario? Previous speakers have mentioned about Niti Aayog report of net zero for the energy and for ensuring that we have all the parameters for environmental control are taken care of through decarbonization. So India's approach is technology neutral, allowing multiple mobility pathways to scale while remaining firmly climate conscious in the decarbonization objectives. In this direction, India has started on electrification, which is gaining a real momentum. Today, our EV penetration is 8% of the total vehicle sales in 2025. Electric three-wheelers about 16%, and electric buses about 7% of the annual bus sales. It's not only the road mobility, the railway transformation has reached about 99.2% of the broad gauge network. Transitional fuels remain essential, and CNG contributes about 9% of the on-road transport energy. We have expanding station network and commercial adoption of the transitional fuels. We are also moving in the direction of biofuels pathway, E20 I mentioned to you, that will strengthen the domestic value chain. These outcomes demonstrate that India's multi-fuel strategy is already operational at a scale. In this direction, Government of India has taken many initiatives. And for example, the transition is supported by a coordinated policy ecosystem that integrates digital innovation. You know, India's digital stack is one of the best in the world today. Infrastructure modernization and the industrial incentives which have been provided in this sector. National electric mobility and manufacturing support include incentive frameworks to accelerate EV adoption across segments. We have production-linked incentives for advanced automotive components and battery manufacturing. Its impact is going to be scaling domestic manufacturing while reducing the import dependency. We have a major program called PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, which includes integrated multimodal infrastructure planning platform, GIS-based digital coordination across ministries, and alignment of rail, road, ports, airports, and logistics corridor. Its impact is going to be reduced logistics costs, faster project execution, and improved freight efficiency. ITS and digital traffic management include deployment of adaptive traffic signaling, real-time traffic monitoring, smart corridor development for highway optimization. Ministry of Road Transport and Highways mandated AIS 140 GPS tracking, compliance for commercial and public vehicles, enabling real-time tracking, emergency SOS features, impactors, decongestion, improved fuel efficiencies, and enhanced road safety. Integration of digital public infrastructure for mobility is one of our main themes. So unified digital payment systems enabling seamless mobility transactions. India's fastest electronic toll collection system has achieved 98% market penetration with over 8 crore users. Application programming interface based integration across all transport modes. Its impact is frictionless, multimodal travel and scalable digital integration. As I mentioned to you, the automobile sector was transformed by our collaboration with Japan in early 80s. Because India and Japan bring complementary strengths. India offers scale and market growth, software and AI capabilities, as was mentioned earlier by other speakers. We have a huge manufacturing ambition and we have a policy commitment to diversify in energy sector. And India can serve as a large-scale testbed for new technologies like hydrogen freight corridors, mobility as a service integration, grid interactive EV systems and so on. We also know that Japan offers, in this case, advanced technology depth, power semiconductor leadership, which is essential, high-speed rail engineering, which is what we are getting in the high-speed railway or the bullet train project which is going on between Ahmedabad, between two stations, Ahmedabad and Bombay, and proven safety records. Japan's expertise in safety engineering and signaling systems can significantly improve the traffic management and road safety. Integration of the smart mobility with smart urbanization. This experience in integrating rail networks with urban growth models, offering valuable insights in establishing multimodal hubs and high-density planning. So India-Japan collaboration, I look at it in three phases basically. Phase one, we established the foundation. We delivered tangible institutional engineering outcomes. For example, now, as I mentioned to you, the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail collaboration. Japan ODA supported metro and urban transport infrastructure, joint working groups on intelligent transport systems and sustainable road infrastructure. Phase two is the technology and ecosystem. The next phase may focus on hydrogen mobility pilots for freight and heavy-duty transport, software-defined vehicles and mobility as a system innovation sandbox environments can be created. Power semiconductor, which is very, very essential for mobility, to power the electronics and co-development can be taken up, and life cycle carbon accounting alignment and standards harmonization. Technology and ecosystem can also help in green mobility, financing platforms and blended capital models. And workforce transition and mobility skill acceleration in these programs can take place. This will mark the transition from just the infrastructure partnership to a strategic co-creation. By 2030, this partnership should aim to demonstrate scalable, technology-integrated pilots capable of institutional adoption. Before I conclude, I would like to mention a few things which I have been discussing with some of the Japanese companies, particularly Toyota. We have been having a lot of debate in this multi-path, multi-fuel strategy. What should be our priority? I'm not saying that we should not go to all electric systems. But our game is not just electric system. Our aim is net carbon zero. Our aim is minimum pollution. I personally believe, and all studies between Japan and India have shown, that the plug-in hybrid gives you a much better life cycle emission denominator as compared to even a best of the electric vehicle. It has been my endeavor in all discussions with the companies that we should promote more and more plug-in hybrids across the spectrum, not just in the high-end vehicles, but in the small vehicles also. There has been some concerned about the duty structure which is being provided by the government in this segment. But I think in all cases where the duties have been high, it's all the small beginning that take place. I'm very happy to know that Toyota came up with their hybrid, strong hybrid, and now with Vitara, with the Suzuki, and also Honda came with the hybrids. But I think we have to reach the scale, and we have to go to a level that it goes into the smallest class of vehicle to the mid segment as well as high segment. I'm quite certain that this will fetch the market. Initiation in that regard. People thought that electric vehicle will not be sold. I give you the numbers. All are costlier than the IC engine vehicles, but people are buying it. So I think we have to make the beginning, and I urge that the collaboration between India and Japan in this sector should go across into the plug-in hybrid or all segments. Mobility transformation is not a sectoral reform, it is a structural redesign of energy, data, infrastructure and industry. India and Japan together can shape that architecture responsibly, inclusively and strategically. Let this partnership be guided by technological neutrality and pragmatic transition, institutional continuity beyond political cycles, and measurable execution with defined milestones. I hope that this summit will bring more and more collaborative efforts in the segment of mobility, energy, and all what we call as making this planet carbon-free for our future generations to live. So let's work together with more vigor, with more access to each other's technology and efforts to bring in this geopolitically changing scenario a collaborative effort that will stand out as an example for the whole world. Thank you very much.